I'd like to introduce our presenters for today, Tanya Burrell and Jessica Macias. Tanya Burrell is a California native. She is a wife and a mother of two teenagers. She holds a master's degree in child development from San José State and has nearly 2 decades of experience as an early childhood educator. A certified positive discipline early childhood educator and educator, she is the founder of the Parenting Toolkit, which provides engaging parenting workshops, early childhood learning experiences, educator support, and professional development opportunities, especially for under-resourced communities. Tanya has been honored to serve various organizations, families, and educators, including our Neighborhoods Ready for School, Roots Community Health Center, and Lotus Bloom, and First Five Santa Clara, and Alameda County, Santa Clara County Office of Education, YWCA Monterey County, and Almaden Parents Preschool. Through her work, Tanya partners with families, educators, and community providers to deepen understanding of how young children think, learn, and grow, providing practical tools to help raise children ready for life. Also like to welcome Jessica Macias. She is also a California native, a wife, and a mother of two boys with more than 24 years of experience in early childhood education and leadership. She holds a bachelor's degree in child development and master's degree in public administration from Walden University. As the founder of Colibri ECE, Jessica supports educators, particularly Spanish-speaking professionals, through coaching, mentoring, workshops, and resources focused on developmentally appropriate practices for children ages 0 to 8. Jessica has partnered with organizations including local YMCA chapters, KSS Immersion Preschool, First Five Santa Clara, and First Five San Benito County to facilitate professional development and virtual workshops. She has also served as a mentor and coach for the Santa Clara County Office of Ed, Child Development Department's ECE Prep Program, and she currently serves as the CEO of the YWCA Monterey County. Jessica is passionate about strengthening the early childhood field by equipping educators and families with practical relationship-based tools that support children's growth and development. As she often says, we must understand it in our minds and feel it in our hearts to put it into practice. So please join me in welcoming today Tanya and Jessica. It's such a pleasure having you both here with us today. I'll now turn it over to you.
Thank you so much for having us. We're really excited to be here.
Yes, thank you, Captain Leah. First Five, it is always a joy to be in a learning space, with other providers, other educators, all those who are present. So thank you for having us. We will go ahead and jump right in because Jessica and I always say that this workshop could use a lot more time, but we've gotten pretty good in condensing it to whatever time is allowed. So, we'll get started. We are here today. We're talking about strengthening partnerships with families and caregivers. Connect, collaborate, and care. Our agenda for today, we've already gone through introductions. We will have a quick warm-up activity to kind of get us just in the space of thinking about our topic for today, get us ready to receive some of the information and share. And then we'll talk about building relationships, partnering and advocating for children, community building opportunities, the power of language, and then Q&A and resources. And as we go along, our hope is to create an environment for that connection, that collaboration, and that caring, not just, and how we engage with families, but with each other today. So, we're hoping that the information can spark those discussions as we do take part in breakout rooms and have chat responses to learn from each other in this space, since we come from a variety of different serving spaces, for our families that we do serve. You've already heard our introductions. There are our family pictures, just so you can get a connection of who we are, our faces and our families. Let's go ahead and let's start with our warm-up for today. So on the count of 3, you can feel free to unmute your mic, or you can type in chat your quick response to this question. Which part of your work do you find more stressful? Working with children, if you work with children, or working with parents, caregivers, clients? 1, 2, 3.
Parents.
Yes, we hear parents, we see caregivers, parents. A lot of parents coming into the chat. I think I might have saw one with children, and that is all right as well. But yes, every time we ask this question, the overwhelming response is usually with the parents, with the caregivers. And you'll hear us interchange parents, caregivers, and clients for our work today. But we are just meaning the individual that is responsible for the care of the child in the home. That could be a foster parent, it could be a grandparent, aunt, uncle, whoever is responsible for that child. Most we work with. And, if there is the response out there, I believe there was one for child, that's okay too, right? Because we come from different backgrounds. For some of us, it might be, that training with child, we are working so often with the adults, we might, are always encouraged, right, to grow in that area with children. So sometimes that could be stressful. If we do have that interaction with the child, just in needing more tools and support there, that's okay. But oftentimes we do hear it is working with the parents that can cause that stress. Now, hold on, we're going to move forward here in just a bit. As you are thinking of the things that parents or our caregivers and our clients do, or maybe sometimes fail to do, what are those things that cause us stress? So we mentioned that it was oftentimes caregivers that might cause stress. What are those things in particular? And you can type that in chat because we're going to refer back to this list in just a moment. So if you can think of some things, showing up late or, not responding when contacted, any of those types of things, type it in chat because we're going to refer back to this list in just a moment. And just to set up this space too, it is okay. I know my chat window kind of popped up there. I'm going to write a response here. It is okay for us to receive a variety of responses that come because we are in different settings. We have different things that we encounter. So it's okay if we hear. A lot of us can relate to a lot of things that we are popping up in chat. Yeah, not engaging, definitely. Avoiding sharing the true feelings about their children absolutely can be a challenge. Yes, I hear there's a comment. I work with a lot of grandparents caring for grandchildren. Yeah. And hearing the stories of their struggles about their adult children can be hard. Absolutely. Yep. Not responding to requests. Okay. Hold on to all of these because they're going to hit home for us in just a moment. Now, you're invited to take a couple of calming breaths with me if you would like to. So we're going to take one breath in and breathe out. And another breath in and breathe out. And you're invited to either close your eyes or turn off your camera for just a moment. As you hear this visualization, you're going to just hear a imaginative scenario, and you're going to see yourself in this scenario in just a moment here. So think about a parent, a caregiver, or a client who is in your program. A parent, caregiver, or client with whom you have had challenges, disagreements, or conflict. Now, imagine that individual standing just in front of you, but they're facing away from you. Imagine yourself walking forward until you're right behind that individual. Then gently step into their shoes. Now you're looking through that parent, caregiver, or client's eyes. Take a moment and look around through their eyes. What does your program look like to this individual? You are now this caregiver or client. Is there anyone there in the program to help you or to help your child? Can you see it? What feelings do you have as this caregiver? Are you hopeful? Discouraged? Or maybe overwhelmed? Let yourself, for just a moment, really feel these feelings as this caregiver. Now you are still this caregiver. Look around, look at the provider who is assisting you. What does that provider think of you? What expression do you see on their face? Hmm. Did you receive help that you needed? How do you feel when you go to them or when they're in your home? Now, go ahead and take a couple of breaths. We'll breathe in and breathe out. And one more time, we'll breathe in and we'll breathe out. And then we're going to gently step out of that individual shoes and back into our own shoes. And you can feel free to open your eyes or turn your camera on if you feel comfortable. And let's process that together as a group. What was that like for you, this experience, being in their shoes? And feel free if you want to unmute your mic and just share out or type in chat. We'll just take a little bit of time on this so we can continue understanding. Yeah, absolutely. Sometimes taking that moment to pause and view from someone else, even though we don't quite know what's going on, it helps with understanding, with compassion, with grace. Absolutely. Now I'm hoping I might be missing some of the comments in chat, but just know that your comments are honored. Just taking part and being part of this experience is absolutely honored. And for those who are just listening, just taking it in, absolutely that's honored as well. What might it feel like to be that parent, that caregiver, that client, and have that life? And now we carefully say this, what might it feel like to be that parent or caregiver or client? Because we don't truly know. But if we take a moment to pause and think about what is it like for them to have their life, the bits that we know that they're going through, what might that feel like for them?
I'll share some of the comments was understanding and empathy, compassion, grace. And then this exercise has served as a good reminder in terms of, I'm going to assume, working with families and individuals.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah, I see another comment here. I've been in their
Yes.
shoes and always try to have empathy, understanding of their experiences. Absolutely.
Mhm.
Yeah, as their situations and journeys. Oftentimes they have expectations that I'm not able to meet. Absolutely. We do what we can as much as we can, right? And this exercise often helps us to just keep that human connection for sure. And with that, there's this quote. This exercise is a positive discipline exercise, and a part of it is this quote. And this is from Wendy Mass. She's an author of a best-selling book, The Candy Makers. And sometimes this is incorrectly attributed to Plato, but she says, "Be kind, for everyone you meet is fighting a battle you know nothing about. Sé amable, porque cada persona que conoces está librando una batalla de la que no sabes nada." So often this quote invites us to take that moment, as we mentioned, as was mentioned in the chat, to have that grace, to have that compassion, to remember, right? Sometimes in the work that we do, it's you either go, 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 or there might be feelings that we have that come into play too, out of a place of care, right? Out of a place of frustration sometimes because of care, you know. And when we are invited to just take a moment and put ourselves in another's shoes, sometimes that can give us a little bit extra to continue to go, to continue to serve, to continue to be, what we need to be to show up, for those that we are helping. Absolutely. Okay, one last piece of our exercise here, and then we're going to move forward. This last question down here says, now that we've spent time in that parent, caregiver, client shoes, what are some things we can adjust to better partner with them? So if this exercise did bring up some, okay, I'm thinking about the situation differently now. You're invited to share, and you can share real quickly if you like. What are some of those things that we can adjust to help us, right? To help us engage better with them. We mentioned those challenges we said we're going to come back to, right? On showing up in time and having families engaging. It's hard sometimes hearing the struggles, so remembering those challenges, remembering this experience. How do we move forward? Yes, I can communicate to see how I can help. Ask questions with the intent. Yeah, oh, these are moving fast. Okay, comments in the chat. These are moving fast. Excellent. Absolutely. I'm going back to ask questions with the intent of actually hearing their answers. Absolutely. Listening more and being consistent with their help. Act calm, give grace. Yes. Trusting someone unknown to you can be scary and overwhelming. I chose to work with humans. Absolutely. I have to keep that at the forefront, being present and actively listening, leaving space for big emotions. Absolutely. You are in the house today. This is what we're talking about today. So as we continue unfolding, just reminders, a lot of what we share today may not be new information, but it is an opportunity for us to reflect, for us to maybe hear gems from each other, not just from us facilitators, but from each other on what we can be reminded of to continue to bring into our practice to keep us going, right? Yeah, remembering that we are human. We need that connection for sure. Thank you all for taking part in that warm up. We are now going to go ahead and jump in to more of the meat of our discussion today. So this first section, we're going to talk quickly about just 10 quick reminders on building relationships, and then we're going to break into small groups to bring this information forward to what that will look like, or what that does look like or could look like in your practice. Okay. So one thing to be more mindful of is to build relationships with the carers. And now you'll hear this term. Jessica, actually, she brought this term forward, and it has stuck with me a lot. And looking at our families, I know in some settings, our families are referred to as clients, some caregivers, some parents. This word care, you'll kind of hear us say more and more throughout our session today, encompasses all of that, helping us to come from that positive lens perspective of the person that we are caring for is also caring for someone else. Okay. So this first point is to remember to build relationships with the carer. This takes time, and it does involve trust. It doesn't involve respect. Here we're just invited to slow down in our practice, right? And sometimes it feels like, oh, my environment does not call for that. I got to do intakes. I got to do this, that, and the other. And things are going so fast sometimes. But if we can just take a moment when we're on the phone, we're face to face with the carer that we are supporting, and just breathe and go slow and have that moment of genuine connection that can support that dynamic that we're building, that trust that's being built, that is important as we go forward and being able to provide the services and the support that we're able to amongst our organizations. Next one here is come from a place of compassion and empathy, as was mentioned in the chat, right? We can validate feelings. We don't have to agree. Recognizing that a person comes with their own experiences. It's not our experience, but honoring that is their experience. And we can validate that. I hear you. I see you. That is tough. That is hard. How can we help? Right? Coming from that place, again, supports that building of relationship. Working as a team. We often say this and we come from greatly an early childhood background, being preschool teachers, early child educators, right? And so that team mindset is, as an educator, we have a role, right? We make observations in the program of the child and their development. We have that knowledge of child development, right? And we share that with carers and our carers that come to us, right? They have a role too, right? They make observations in the home, what it's like for their child, and communicating that with us educators, it helps us to form this full picture, right? Because they know their child in ways we do not know, right? And when we come together, we form a team that can work forward to be that solution focused, and create that solution focused environment that is helpful for the family. So it's just being mindful in various settings that we are working in to what is our role? What is the role of the carer? And how can we honor each other's role to work together? Continue developing understanding regarding family backgrounds, right? We work with a variety of families, a variety of cultures, language. There's gender to be mindful of. There's family differences to be mindful of. There's the impacts of influential life events that are going on all around us. And the more that we take the time to understand those that are right in front of us, the more that we have our empathy lens, the more we can come with compassion, with care, right? So taking that time to get to know who you are serving is important. To check in with carers throughout the week. And this is greatly, again, with our early child educator hat on, we're always checking with families. Like we say that there should be no surprise when it comes to a parent teacher conference, that you have 1 to 2 times a year, depending on your program, right? There should be no surprises that pop up because we're constantly in dialogue, whether it's little check-ins at the end of the day, newsletters that go out, maybe there is a one-on-one with the family, when you're applying this to your setting, questions to consider. What does this look like, according to our protocols? What could this look like? Are there more opportunities to connect more with the families that we are serving? More formal opportunities, or more like park play dates, for example, those types of things. So kind of keep that in mind as you get into those small groups. Maybe that's something that'll come up for conversation. Be discreet with private conversations. And this, may or may not come, go without saying, right? Just to keep confidentiality, we should always be mindful of that when we're working with families, but sometimes things go on busy, work office space, or whatever's happening. And sometimes there might be other ears involved. Sometimes it could be the children's ears of the carers that we're serving, right? So we want to be careful when we're having those private conversations that maybe they're out of earshot of a child or of another provider in the space, just to honor the family that's before us. Find that extra room if you can, or pull over to the family over to the side of the room as close as we can to have that one-on-one conversation. Communicate in a way that invites learning. This always brings me back to like a school environment. When you have an educator who is able to create that environment where you want to chime in and respond, it feels like a safe learning space. As much as we can communicate that with our families to invite safe learning spaces, providing encouragement is a large part of that for our families. Positive feedback. What are they doing? That to encourage them to keep coming, even if that is, you showed up today. I see you. Those little things can build an environment that helps to support later on the learnings. Like, okay, now we have to work on a plan together. So communicating in a way that invites them being on board, our carers being on board with whatever it is, the services that we're providing for them. Presume positive intent. Presume, coming from that place of believing that something is likely true until proven otherwise, right? And this is based on our observations, probability, educated guessing. So we're going to presume that is the case. And then positive intent, That's the mindset of believing others are acting with good intentions. Though they may need help to understand their needs and the needs of their child or how to best meet those needs. When we presume positive intent, it does something for us. It helps us come with a lens of understanding, of empathy and compassion, especially when we're getting to those, I'm getting a little burned out. I've, had this experience again, this is happening, we might be feeling internal things, but when we can be mindful of, remember this, this is a new family. They're doing what they can with what they know. How can we help? That can help change how the tone that we're using. It can help change the language choices that we're using. So just for us to hold on to those things. And none of these things we're saying, we do them all perfect all the time. We're always a work in progress as people. But as we are just mindful of wanting to be present more with our families, just remembering, bringing these back to our remembrance. Okay, let me incorporate this more. Let me hold on to this more. Can be helpful. Be solution focused. Focusing on the solution helps to move us beyond emotions, right? Emotions that can be connected to the problem on the part of the carers and on our part as well, right? We're human too. But when we can remember to, okay, focus on the solution, what can we work on together? What are the offerings for our program? If we can focus on that, that can also help build this positive connection between us and those that we are serving. Instead of focusing on just the problem or just how, something was handled and it wasn't handled this way, let's phrase it on the positive and focus on the solution. You're here right now. This is what we can do. How can we work together and go forward in that manner?
And if I can share, Tanya, I know in the previous trainings that and workshops that we posted, the question then becomes, do we, this is not to say that we sweep things under the rug and then not move forward with a solution, right? This is to say that we are going to presume positive intent, therefore we're going to be focused on a solution, because we can sit here and talk about our problems all day, every day, because we all have them. And so this isn't to say we're going to sweep anything under the rug. It's really to focus on how are we going to move forward at the end of the day with addressing whatever the matter may be. So it's really just what's our end goal? Most of the time, we're all on the same page with the end goal of supporting children in one way or another. So what is the end goal and how are we going to get there while addressing whatever the concern or the case may be. So it's really just what's the end goal? How are we going to get there? And we're working on this together as a team. So they all kind of work in conjunction with each other. It's not checking off each box, right? There's some days that you might mix and match a little bit. But I just really wanted to put that out there that it's not sweeping under the rug. It's really just focusing on the end goal.
Yes,
Yeah.
absolutely. Thank you for bringing that out and making that clear. Focus on the end goal and in a way that invites both parties to be active participants engaged in that matter, for sure. And then this last piece here, before we break out into breakout groups here, is self-care. Part of this building positive relationships is also remembering ourselves, right? And in the teaching world, like we're in so all the serving worlds, right? We're often emptying our cups to fill up, children, families, cares, our other team members, admin, etc. There's often so much that is going out, right? Self-care is being mindful that we are filling up ourselves as well, right? We are checking in with ourselves. We are doing what we can to prevent burnout, because in service to others, that is a real thing, right? It is about caring for our nervous system. It is about inviting time for yourself to have that alarm center that goes off to settle, right? And to helping ourselves rewire ourselves, right? Wire in the calm into our life and to practice that. So yes, this can look like going on walks. This can look like reading music, taking time to talk to a trusted individual, setting boundaries, all of these things to help ourselves so that we are then able to help those that we serve. Okay. So we can go on more and more, but we want to pause here to make sure that we have enough time to get to discussion, small group discussion. So in chat, you will get a copy of this list that we just talked about here, relationship building. And then you'll also get a copy of this discussion breakout group, and some guidance for this time period. So when you get into your groups, you're going to introduce yourself, your organization, and your role. Then you're going to share how you build trust with families within your organization. You're going to talk about what has been a roadblock in building positive relationships in your space, and what are some possible solutions that can help. So really our invitation is to use this time, brainstorm with one another to support each other in our fields of helping, of serving. And then you make sure that you decide, one person who will be able to come back and share some of the highlights, some of the aha moments that came from your small group discussion when we get back together as a large group. All right, feel free to let me know if there are any questions that have come up. Okay, if there are no questions, make sure you click on those two boxes in chat. That way you'll have them as you break out into your smaller groups, just to talk about, what it is like in your serving space, how you support families. You'll have about 10 minutes or so to discuss, then we'll come back. Yeah, I know that we're coming back together slowly. We're trickling in. So if you're coming back in, you'll just hear a response of, our brief share out from our group. And Jessica, feel free to chime in. I know that you might have a different angle to chime in your experience. For me, a lot of what I hear about, and I love that connection before correction, that's positive discipline language all the way. So you're speaking my language over there and flipping the lid, all of that. In working with children for so long, we come across a variety of scenarios, children tantrums, kicking, hitting, spitting to the teachers, all the things. And it's where that co-regulation piece comes in, where we have to keep our calm, right? And so that our children, Julie Kurtz says it, if you know Julie Kurtz, trauma responsive care, she's a wonderful resource for those out there, allowing children to borrow our calm, so that way, if their lid is flipped, we got to keep ours down so theirs comes back down, and we work with that from the lens of the educator and the child. But I tell you, even with an adult to an adult, if we can hold on to that lens, Jessica and I talk about how preschool lens, man, that could change the world. Sometimes we can approach situations a little bit differently, So that being said, usually when an adult goes off, right, we're like, well, I can't believe this adult is going off on me, and like it's a different response. But if a child goes off, we can keep our cool a little bit longer because we know understand it's a child, and they can come back down. If we can hold that space for an adult going off, and we can respond, we have some tips in here that's coming up, how we change our tone, how we change our volume, and how we really connect, and just get into holding our zone. I hear you right now. I understand that you are yelling at me because this is touching your heart. This is reaching you to the core, and I feel you. There is frustration there. We're going to work on this. We're going to get through this. We may not know how just yet, but we're going to get there. If you bringing that down, just seeing from that lens of, okay, this person right now is dysregulated, and I can go there too, or I'm going to keep it together now and help this person come back down, right? But then what happens is we carry that, right? If we're that regulated person, we carry that sometimes. And when the situation is gone, we also need someone that we can go to and talk, whether it's our supervisor or somebody else in a protected, professional lens that we can go and talk to and say, okay, I just need some help with this, or I just need some time to process this, whatever that looks like on professional, through a professional lens to help alleviate us a bit too. So that's just to comment on your experience there. Yeah. All right. Well, are we all back together? Everyone's
I
back?
believe
Okay.
so.
Well, thank you, everyone. We're going to just take a few minutes. If there are highlights from your group that you have to share, we'll do that. Then we're going to move on to our next segment for today. And Jessica's going to go ahead and take on the next segment. Any highlights that popped out from your discussion or aha moments?
This is Jacqueline Smith here from the Unity Council Head Start. I'll speak for our group. I don't remember what our number was, but something we talked about for obstacles or roadblocks, it was pretty unanimous that language barriers could be the difference of somebody following through with you or um, being engaged. You know, do you offer my language? What kind of apps or things our parents are equipped with or our staff. So we did agree that that was one of the common barriers with multiple languages and not always having those resources.
Yes, absolutely. That becomes a common barrier there. Did you get a chance to discuss any possible solutions that from your group?
I know for myself, I just kind of said in my role for family engagement coordinator, I'm going to work with a provider who actually offered her services to me. Um, she's going to help me do a flyer in those two predominant languages. And she's willing to have a meeting just for the families that speak those languages so they can start building some community and then give me some insight too as to how I can better engage them. And then someone else in the group too, she did share that she speaks multiple languages, so she's able to support in that way as well.
Yes, awesome. Thank you for sharing. That's another reason why we enjoy getting together collectively, sharing resources, learning from each other. Absolutely. Okay, is there anyone else from another group that would like to share? And if you're hearing something too, and you're like, oh, I have some information I can share, you can type it in chat too. So keep your eyes on the chat.
I can share for our group. It was myself, Allison, and Nancy. I think we unanimously decided that there's a lot of like cultural beliefs and views when it comes to like mental health, and that can make caregivers and parents like very resistant or hesitant, which is a valid, concern because they have had their own experiences with systems, and then because we work in systems, it can make them hard to trust us, and that is definitely a roadblock that we've all experienced. Possible solutions that we mentioned were like active listening and just more awareness, more trainings around how to be like more trauma informed about what parents or caregivers are going through. Um, I think I'm missing something. And my brain is blanking. I'm sorry.
No worries. Mhm.
Yeah, I'll fix it right.
Yeah, no worries at all. What you shared, yeah, what you shared was helpful indeed. Yes. Go ahead, Jessica. Were you going to chime
No,
in?
I was just, yeah, even to the point earlier, I feel like collaboration and partnership is one of those biggest tools that we have in terms of not recreating wheels, helping each other out in spaces and opportunities where we can. Kind of like what is it, back in the days, the bartering days of trading and really seeing how we can help each other out. So being in these groups, I think are even in this diverse group where everyone comes from a different background, I think even especially in this setting, since it's not just one specific area of focus, I think we probably have those opportunities here where we can see how we can help each other in these different with these different situations that may arise.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you. All right. I think, do we have another group out there? Was there one more group?
Yeah, I was with Mr. Colbert and Ariana, and we spoke about how we build trust with families is doing events for them. Also, when during these events, just kind of showing up and introducing themselves and talking to the families. Um, Also, frequent and proactive communication, which could be phone calls, emails, texts. Um, For roadblocks, we talked about having limited time with the families because there's so many of them and feeling like they're spread out thin. Um, Logistics can be a roadblock and other family obligations.
Yeah, absolutely. That can be a big one there. So there are a lot of families that need the support, and there's oftentimes not many of us who are able to be able to provide, that time that really our families need. But we do the best with what we can, with what we have. We're always searching for more ways, and it sounds like your group was already thinking of other ways that you can take part in reaching those families. Thank you for sharing. All right. Was there one last group? I lost count of groups.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
So we decided that how we share building trust with families is and building rapport is just showing genuine care, greeting them, asking them how they're doing, communication, basically letting them know by basically letting them know what we heard them say, and being trustworthy, being reliable, and being consistent. And then also being considerate of their kids or their barriers. So if, they need to focus and then we can create an area for kids, then we do that. And putting their needs above ours, making sure that they're okay. And some of the barriers that we had were paperwork when their needs don't always align with ours, and having to rebuild trust due to circumstances, and then the lack of consistency and communication, when the member doesn't communication or it's hard to reach them.
Yeah. Thank you for sharing. Okay. Well, I think that was our last group. Okay, thank you for sharing just what your groups have talked about as far as building trust, roadblocks, and some of the solutions. And be sure, again, to keep your eyes on chat because I did see some offerings, potential resources that are popping up in chat. So again, if you're hearing anything out there that you're like, ooh, this is a good resource that helped me out, send it to chat so that way, those of us who are in here can also have access. All right, I'm going to go ahead and pass it on to Jessica, so we can continue our discussion.
Hi, everyone. Also, I wanted to add back to the previous conversation. I mean, everything intertwines with each other, right? This whole conversation is about communicating, language, building relationship. And one of the topics that has also arise with this that I feel we should address since it didn't come up is the fact that this is not an okay for a client to disrespect or a parent to disrespect, right? This is, I think, goes to Tanya's the flip the lid example in the sense of we cannot have this conversation right now if they're at 100, right? They need to come down and they will know when that is. This is in no way, shape, or form saying that it's okay to be disrespected. We are all experts in our field. We know what we're trying to convey and help. But again, this does not mean that we're just going to allow any form of disrespect, right? This is, building this relationship is also letting them know that tone is not okay. Those words you're using are not okay. We can come back to this, of course, once you've calmed down or once you are in a calmer state of mind. And I think that we are in our power to do that and have that conversation with someone, because we're also not going to get anywhere if there's someone at 100 and we need them to come down to, at least a 20, right? So just keeping that in mind as well as we move forward to building these relationships. It's really, again, stepping back, seeing it through another lens, and then what's the end goal? How are we going to get there? Obviously, if someone is really upset, it's finding out why they're upset. So usually it has nothing to do with the person standing in front of them. It's just that's the person who's getting that energy. So I just wanted to mention that. And then moving on with the conversation and, partnering and advocating for children, how can we go about that? And I know we're all from different walks of in our roles and agencies and things of that nature. But I think it still stays really true to it is the importance of observation and documentation, right? what is it that we're seeing? What is it that we're observing? And then having those notes are so important in many professions and many environments. It's important to have those accurate notes of and very objective notes of what it is that we're seeing with this family, this dynamic, these adults, these children in the family unit. So what is it that we're seeing and how, the importance of maintaining proper documentation so that we can refer to back later, right, and help. Um, and yeah, so documentation supports in many different aspects. It's what resources will they need? What is it that we're observing that the parent might not see or the carer might not see? And keeping all of those um, as we work with the family, and hopefully, we're able to find to provide the support that they need at the end of the day. And this goes along with documenting and offering resources and referrals. Understanding, I know not all agencies do everything, so it's really important knowing what it is that they need, so that we're able to give the proper referrals, whether it's to mental health, to food insecurities, to housing, knowing the resources around us and making those connections and those partnerships and collaborations in order to be able to make those referrals um, and and assist the family and the carers and the children. It supports family engagement, right? We've talked about this earlier. How do we bring it as a team unit, as a team dynamic? How are we all engaging in this? It's not I have all the answers and I'm going to provide you these answers. It's really how do we create this team dynamic to where the family is engaged and the family is part of the solution. We're not just going to solve the problem for them. We're going to do this together, and we're going to find out the solutions together, and helping them through that process, I think, is really important in terms of their independence, of being able to solve these problems later on without your assistance. We're not going to be with them forever. This is really important in my current walk of life. I am the CEO for the YWCA in Monterey County, and we offer services for domestic violence. And so ultimately, one of our ultimate goals is to ensure that they are able to support themselves and their families without our assistance, right? After case management, we want to make sure that they are engaged and feel supported in that planning, so that it doesn't so that they understand what they need to do at the end of the day to continue to move forward. So what are some helpful tips in meeting with carers? Again, I know we all have different areas of work, but really the principles are still the same. So number one, being prepared. It's hard to go into a meeting and if you don't know anything about the family, if you haven't read any case notes, if you haven't had any conversations, if you don't have paper and pen to list, to annotate. So just being prepared ultimately, I think, is really important, and it works. And this is across any profession. Scheduling enough time for the conversation. We don't want it to feel rushed. We talked in our group earlier, sometimes intakes can take 30 minutes, an hour, 2 hours. So it's really trying to make enough time for that client or for that patient, for that carer, that won't, that won't seem rushed, or it will be enough time for them for us to get the information that we need to then better support them. Sorry. Using positive language and from a positive perspective. Again, this does not mean we're not going to deal with the real problems or sweep things under the rug. It's really how are we going to move forward with a solution, and that comes from using the positive language, not using accusatory language. Well, you're not doing this, you're not doing that. It's really how are we going to get to our end goal with this lens of being able to to positively address it and be able to see that end goal. We don't want to be stuck in that negativity. I recently went to a conference and they helped with youth. And one of the things that really stuck to me was that the speaker said was that why am I going to sit here and constantly remind this child of all the things they're doing bad? Of they know they're not supposed to be drinking. They know they're not supposed to be using substance. They know they're not supposed to be sneaking out and things of that nature. But to then just solely focus on that is not going to help them. So what I'm going to do is provide these tools and this other provide these tools and this knowledge of this other life they can live, of these other things they can do, and really try to steer them so that they themselves steer that way, right? So we want to not get stuck in this negativity and negative language. We want to make sure that we're able to then help them maneuver a different way. Okay. And being going with the positive language, solution oriented. What's our end goal and how are we going to get there? And then how are we going to get there together? How am I going to help you get there? What is it that you need in order for us to get to that solution, that end goal, that help that is needed? And so using active listening, clear language, or active listening, yes, active listening, clarifying questions, not questions that are going to seem accusatory. It's really just finding out more information and just listening with what's really maybe going on. Again, sometimes they're venting about things that might not be something you can solve, but because they're in this space where they feel comfortable, then we go back to trying to find a solution to what it is that they're sharing with us. And using clear language is really important too. We're not here to promise things we can't deliver, right? We need to make sure that it's understood what it is that we can do, what we can't do, but also if there's something that isn't understand, giving that opportunity to clarify what that means for that particular instance or that client. And making sure that, always at the end of a conversation is like, did I make sense? Did that make sense to you? The way that I explained it, was that clear? Do we know what the next steps are? So really, before leaving those meetings with the carers is ensuring that the plan of action is understood, that the next steps are understood, maybe the next meeting is even planned, right? All that clarity, as much clarity as we can provide during these times, I think is really important. And again, the follow-up plan is what's the next steps? How are we going to get there? What is needed? All these questions that we can answer together is really important in order to successfully get to the end goal by providing all of these steps and questions with the carer. And then lastly, it's providing the resources, right? I think it's really easy sometimes, like I think of in the education world, as Tanya shared, that's our majority of our background is education. And it's easy to tell a parent, go get an assessment, right? Go ask your doctor. But it's not that easy. It's not that black and white. So what can we do as a provider, in the space to offer resources? What can we do in order to support that? Here's, First Five's contact. They help with ASQs. Maybe you can contact them. Here's the district your child belongs to. Maybe you can contact them. This is the application, right? Providing those resources in terms of their next steps, because a lot of parents that, in my experience, most carers that come that I've met with, they don't know what to do. They don't know what the next steps are. So really having that resource will definitely help in them being able to do this independently and feel part of the solution. Okay, so for this next, does anyone have any questions or comments before we go into these case scenarios? Comments, questions, concerns? Okay, so for this next space, we're going to ask a couple of questions, and there's going to be three answers, and you are free to unmute yourself if you'd like to, or if you like to put it in the chat, what the answer may be. So with the questions, is the answer is either going to be, it is not best practice. I mean, it is, A will be, it is best practice. B is not best practice. And C is unsure. So we'll go ahead and do the first one. Is there anyone that would want to volunteer to read the scenario one? If not, I can read it, of course. But if anyone wants to read it,
I can read it for you if you
okay,
want.
sounds good.
A teacher notices a child struggling emotionally in the classroom. She immediately contacts the child's healthcare provider to discuss her concerns without first obtaining consent from the caregiver. You want to do Spanish?
Yeah, no, it's okay. Um, Thank you so much for reading that for us. Does anyone have an idea? Oh, I see some answers. Okay. It is not best practice is the consensus, and the answer is B. You guys are correct. It is not best practice to bypass the client. In this case, it's the parents to contact the healthcare provider. You know, knowing some HIPAA laws, they probably shouldn't be sharing anything as well. So if there are, then there's some other red flags and concerns. But definitely answer is B, not best practice. Scenario number 2. Does anyone want to read that one?
I can take scenario number 2.
Oh, thank you, Lynette.
During a team meeting, professionals from education, healthcare, and social services discuss support plans for a family. Before finalizing decisions, they ask the caregiver for input and incorporate their priorities into the plan.
Thank you so much for reading that. So what do we think is the answer? I see A, that it is best practice. Does anyone want to share why this is the best practice? Or the answer is A.
Because I think overall everything should be client-centered. Client.
Yeah, definitely. Client-centered. This is also a group of professionals, right? That they all come from different backgrounds who are assisting this child in whatever area that the focus is. So it's really, coming together for to best support this child. So it's the educators, the healthcare and social services. In an ideal world, obviously this would happen every time, but we know unfortunately it doesn't. But we know we can do that within our teams, right? We practice case management meetings in terms of we share what clients we have, where we might be needing some help, some suggestions and services. So definitely having a group dynamic and that shared space where we can find solutions, especially again, being solution oriented. Not one person has all the answers, and caregivers fully involved. I feel like that is part of what we're trying to establish, right? That team dynamic, including the parents and the carers, and the caregiver knows their child the best, right? They have that firsthand knowledge. They're going to be with their parents for till they're at least they're 18 for the rest of their lives. And so it's really, again, providing those tools and that team dynamic so that we all feel like we're part of the solution. And so, yes, the answer is A. Good job, everyone. And then scenario 3, a caregiver misses 2 appointments. Team members conclude that the caregiver is not interested in the services and decide to reduce outreach efforts. What do we think? Best practice, not best practice, or not sure? We have B, not best practice. And yes, B, you are correct. So it's not best practice. in the sense of there was no how many times was this caregiver contacted outside of missing these two appointments? Did we know why they missed those appointments? Is there some ongoing struggle that they have that we just don't know about? Are we just assuming that they are not interested in services instead of really finding out what is going on to then we know this care needs help, but how do we get to that point of being able to know to either, close their service, their files or keep their files open? So yes, you are correct. The answer is B. Does anyone have anything to share within this space? I know we have different backgrounds, but um, I don't know, within each of your professions, how do we see these scenarios or other scenarios maybe playing out? Please feel free to unmute yourself. See, and
I've come in contact with a case two scenario.
okay.
I used to intern for a program. This was a long time ago, but
Mhm.
they still exist. It used to be called the Marcus Center in Atlanta, Georgia,
Mhm.
but now it's called the Marcus Institute
Okay.
and for Autism Center now. But back in the day, and I would say this was in the mid like 90s, um, you got all your observations, all of your assessments, everything was done in-house. So you met
Okay.
with a developmental pediatrician, you met with a social worker, you met with an occupational therapist. Everybody did their assessments. Then everybody sat down together at the table and with the parents and discussed like all of their findings, all of what they believe would help, and then they put together a program together with the parents.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah, it was really cool because most of the children were coming from out of state and out of country.
Okay.
So
That
it was,
that's
but that I feel like that's the best way
yes,
if possible.
yeah, I totally agree. I know that there is, I don't know where you guys are all located, but I know it's like Bay Area. San Francisco also has um it's something similar to scenario A, which is where I got my inspiration from. It's called Freedom Forward. I put their link in there in case anyone just wants to peruse, or if you're nearby. They offer services for youth 14 to 24, and they have, I believe, 34 or 36 agencies under one roof. And so they're able to provide these youth all of the services in one space. And so I think that is amazing and it should be replicated, but definitely it's it's ideal. And if it had, I mean, I'm glad you have experience in that and working all together in that space. So I think that's awesome. Anybody else want to share?
I think someone else had their hand raised. So you're welcome to come off mute. Oh,
Oh
there we
yeah.
go.
Hello everyone. Uh, for the third scenario, I have experience. Once I referred one of my clients to our counselor, and she really needed assistance. And so After some time, when I contacted this client and asked if she received any help from the Afghan coalition, and she said, no, I have been not contacted by the counselor. And when I reached out to counselor, she said, uh, I called her twice and she didn't respond, so I did not reach out to her. And the client was still waiting and she was in need. And one of our coworkers said, I thought she's not interested or she don't
Mhm.
need the service anymore. That's why I did not reach out. And when I reached out to client, she was still in need. So uh,
Mhm.
yeah, so I think it's not best practice to just like think that maybe she does not she does not need the service. I think we should reach out to client again and again. If we could not contact the client, it doesn't mean she is not in need. We have to find out why she is not why she missed these appointments. I think we should really know the reason.
Thank you so much. Can you tell me how to pronounce your name?
Shugufa.
Shagufa. Thank you so much, Shagufa. I think that's great. Then that brings up another, a great point in the sense of the implicit bias, right? We're thinking for the client, we're assuming that we know what they need without their input. So I think it's really important that we don't do that, that we just really find out from them what it is that they need, and then we can offer the services, we can offer the resources and the referrals when it comes to that and that support. Again, not assuming that we know everything, right? That's not the space that we're in. We're in the space of being part of this team with them, and so not making assumptions for them or answering for them. I think it's really important so that we're better able to help the clients in reaching their end goal. Thank you so much for sharing that. Okay, then we'll move on to our next activity, or partly. So we'll just briefly go over some things that I've experienced, and then we'll have an opportunity to share of what are some things that we can do to build community within our different environments and different roles, and so that we can feel connected to the parents and everything, and be able to build those relationships further, right? So one of them is, parent coffees. Are we able to, in our spaces, to have an opportunity to come together and have some coffee, whether it's at a certain location? There's meetups at different locations. There's a variety of things. Park play dates. Is there a way to, not necessarily with the agency or with the provider, but is there an opportunity to make these play dates at the park where families can meet together and their children can meet? I know a lot of that was lost during COVID. I remember having play dates and meeting people at the park all the time, but that kind of dynamic went away for a little bit. But just having that culture of community, sharing cultural aspects. Are we, do we know our clients? Do we know their background? Is there a questionnaire that we can provide in terms of finding out more so that we're culturally sensitive when offering services, when offering help, so that we know exactly what it is that they need? Birthday celebrations, some things as simple as sending out cards, sending out recognitions, during the birthday month. A little, when they come into the office, oh, I know it was your birthday last month. Here's a lollipop or something along those lines, just thinking out loud. Field trips. I know this sounds like it's just something that we can do in schools, but if you're part of nonprofits or if you're part of other groups, is finding those agencies that we can maybe have field trips to, or outings. I know with our shelters and our transitional housing, we do field trip community days, so we find out what events are happening in the area in Monterey County that are free. And then we set up a field trip and we take them all, right, within our shelter. But then we also have, looking for other opportunities where we can build community. And then Grandparents' Day. I have Grandparents' Day here, but I actually did a little research, and there's actually there's a Foster Parent Day. There's a Nurse Week. There's obviously, Nurse Week, Teacher Week. There's Uncle and Aunt Day. I didn't know that. There's a National Day. So who's in this family unit that we can celebrate? I know someone that was in our group shared that they work with mostly grandparents. So I know Grandparents' Day leaves in sometime in September. Again, acknowledging that there's a day for them, I think would be something special for them. So this is where the group question comes into play. What are some other events or ideas or practices that you guys have within your spaces that you'd like to share? Regular. We hold regular Christine. We hold regular parent cafes and host our annual Kids Expo in April for Kids Day. Oh yes, Kids Day. We also collaborate with other local agencies to host community baby shower for pregnant and postpartum moms with children under 1 year old. Oh, that sounds lovely. I might have to steal that baby shower idea. That's a good one.
I work
Please go.
in, oh, sorry.
Go ahead. No, go ahead, Stephanie.
I work in classrooms, several classrooms, multiple classrooms, and I do kinder music with the children weekly. And so I do every month have a parent engagement that brings the parents in to do kinder music all together with their children.
Oh, that's awesome. I love that idea. I love that. Music is a universal language.
It's a lot of
So,
fun.
yes, I'm sure it's yeah. When I was in the preschool setting, we used to do um we didn't do like those performing events. It was kind of like a preschool musical. We'd have parents who played and they would play for us. We'd sing the songs and all dance together. And that was just that was lots of fun. Any other ideas? Clothing drives with food, activities for kids, and raffles. Lynette shared. I think clothing drives and drives in general are a way to include the community as well, right? Posting that, you're hosting a coat drive to the community and having them be part of that as well, I think is really important. Any other ideas that are out there? Mel, we hold a Claudia shared that we hold a twice a year male involvement for all father figures in the family activity to do with the child and dinner. Oh, that's beautiful. What do you guys call it? Is it, since it's not like a dad, what's the name of your event? Oh, male involvement day. Oh, okay, okay. Thank you. I love that. That's a great idea. Thank you so much, Tanya, for taking notes.
No problem. I'll go ahead and clip this and add it to the chat. Sorry if you see this go over my screen real fast. Okay. And then dropping it in the chat. Closing that out there. All the things happening on my computer. Apologies, everyone. Clearing this out. Closing that out. And there you go. Okay, well, we'll keep it moving then with one quick poll. So this poll, just got to know if you wanted to continue.
Okay. Yeah. So the poll is, the question is, which idea would you like to try within your org of some of the ideas that were presented here? And thank you for those that shared. It's always important to, again, because we all have different thoughts of mind, it's nice to share what events we're each doing to maybe borrow those ideas. Let's see, so far birthdays are winning. I think we have about 60% who participated. We'll give it a full minute and then we'll close the poll just to see our answers. So let's see who first place was doing something regarding birthday celebrations. I think that's a pretty easy one to kind of start incorporating. Definitely sharing aspects, close number 2 was sharing cultural aspects, park dates, and then parent coffees. All right. Well, thank you everyone for participating.
Okay, for the sake of time, we're going to move this part along a little bit faster just to get to our more interactive piece here. So this really is just highlighting things we've been talking about all along, the power of language, tone, and delivery, and how useful it is, as a tool to support the families that we are serving. So we already mentioned use positive language, and then use language in the objective form is an important thing to be mindful of. Have honest communication, when we're talking to our families that we are serving. Use reflective listening. We've mentioned that. And pay attention to tone and body language. I give this example a lot in talking to other educators, that when we're having a conversation and we're talking either to children or to families, there's a tip. If you're like me and you're very expressive in your face, sometimes a tip is just to raise your eyebrows up when you're communicating. Because that, even if you're delivering a message that can be a little more direct, when your eyebrows are up, it can soften how it's delivering. So the message is still getting through, but you're, preventing the defensiveness when it comes to saying a message when your eyes just happen to be down just because we're inexpressive. So, personally, if you're like me, so practicing that a lot does help, and that's just a helpful tool when it comes to looking at how our bodies communicate. We often talk about when we are around children getting down on their level, or even below their level when you're communicating. And that helps to create an environment where our children are listening, softening our tone to whisper like, okay, it's time to come in now. It's time to listen now. That can also change how we're delivering the message. It doesn't change the message, but it sometimes makes the message more receptive. So with these things in mind,
I just wanted to touch really a little bit, sorry, Tanya, on the use. I know I took a little longer. The use of reflective listening. Tanya and I took a course, I think it was already over a year ago, and we learned the pose, pause, and paraphrase. And I think it's really important to share that it's, listening, taking some time to think about it. We don't have to have those answers right away, and then paraphrasing what was said. Not necessarily what was heard, but what was said, so that then we're better able to understand it, and then again go through the process of finding out the end goal and then that solution.
Yeah, absolutely. And thank you. I know in shortening up this slide, we're missing some of those gems there. That is an important one to bring about. Absolutely. So with this, you're going to get a copy of this slide in chat, and that's going to be paired with our next activity. And this is role play breakout groups. So in this breakout group, you're going to be with a new group of individuals, and you're going to open up those documents in chat to make sure you have them when you break out into your groups. Introduce yourself again, your organization, and your role, because you'll be with new individuals. And then you'll just assign roles amongst your group. Someone's going to be the professional, someone's going to be the client or caregiver, and then the other individuals there will just be an observer, or someone who's going to be the recorder to just take back highlights when we come back together as a large group. So keep that in mind. You're going to kind of role play a little bit with some scenarios we're going to provide for you. They're not really scenarios. They're actually just a quote that sometimes we may have said ourselves or we may have heard said before. So you're going to kind of play out that quote. The professional will say it to the client. You guys can discuss a little bit of how that felt, your feelings, your thinkings, your decidings about what was being said. And then you're going to share out what you would say instead. So you'll refer back to that, the power of language slide. How could you say it differently? How could you use your tone to say it differently? How could you use different words to say it? And just kind of come back to the large group with some examples for each of these, they're not scenarios, quotes that you're going to act out in the chat. All right. And rotate through. See, there's about 6 total. See how many you can get through, and rotate different roles for those who are willing to take part in those different roles. All right. Question. Let us know if there's any questions or comments. If there are no questions or comments, I believe those documents have been added to the chat.
Mm-hmm.
All right. And you'll have about 10 minutes. So that way it gives us time to come back together. 10 minutes to kind of see how many you can get through. I'll add a last little reflection note too, just while everyone's coming back. Even just changing the tone, how we say something, like to a whisper. For children, it works really well. Energies are high, just, oh, wait, come say it again, just dropping it, because it does cause the attention to like focus in and need to listen, and so sometimes that can shift off, it can redirect and shift off that part of the brain that's on alert, and bring kind of that lid back down a little bit, just softening the tone. And even with adults, if an adult is really in their emotions, another thing that I sometimes do is really rise at first and then come back down, like, oh, you are so upset, but I know that we can ... So it kind of feels like, I'm with you, but now.
I lost my
Great.
Welcome back to those who are joining. I think we're just waiting for a few more, I think.
Okay. Oh, looks like everybody's back.
Okay. So now that we've had a chance to do some of the role play, let's see if we can, collectively just share some of the highlights, and, we'll kind of we'll see how far all the groups have gotten here with, instead of saying, what were you thinking? That was a bad idea. Try saying this. And then we're just curious, what did the groups come up with for this response? And it's okay, there's a variety of responses. And if you want to share a highlight from your group too, you can feel free to chime in on that.
We can share our suggestion.
Mhm.
One of the people shared, like, what is your plan?
Yes.
Or what are your goals?
What are your goals? What is your plan?
Yes, absolutely. That language, what is your plan, just brings me all the way back to the classroom, because that was a common thing we said to children. What is your plan? What is your plan right now? Yes. One of our suggestions here is help me understand your thought process. Yeah. All right, we'll keep moving along for the sake of time, but we can just do it like popcorn. If you want to unmute or you want to put in chat, feel free to. I see a response from Michelle. I can see you're frustrated. Do you want to talk about it? Yes, that validating of the feeling and then leaving it open, right, for open sharing. Absolutely. Here's another one here. Instead of saying, what is wrong with you? Try saying, I'll share our response and then you guys chime in with yours. Tell me more about what is going on.
Yeah, I was just going to say, tell me more about how you're feeling.
Yes.
Is there anything you want to share?
Yes. I love it. Inviting of the curiosity questions and inviting, leaving it open for, our families to share with us with more instead of us jumping to something. Absolutely.
Or what's happening to you?
Yeah. What's going on? Yeah.
What are you feeling?
Feeling. Yeah. Absolutely. Okay. Here's our next one. What is happening at home that is causing Jason to act up? What are you doing? Sorry, I'm laughing when I'm saying that, but
I was gonna say,
yeah,
that goes to our conversation on the way it's delivered, right? There's some of these that might not be that bad. It depends on how you deliver it, right? The tone, your facial expressions, your eyebrow position.
Have there been any changes in the home or in the environment?
Yeah. Is there anything that bothers Jason at home?
Yes. Keep chiming in like popcorn. We'll put ours up here too. What do you notice happening immediately before Jason reacts this way at home? Have there been any recent changes? Yeah. So again, more curiosity.
All right. Has Jason shared anything with you?
Yes. Absolutely. Inquiring more information.
How do you react when Jason is upset?
Yes.
That's a good one.
And they might not see the same behaviors at home. So it might start with a conversation about, tell me some of the behaviors you see at home.
Mhm.
Before then, you can ask about his reactions beforehand.
Absolutely. Yes, to paint a bigger picture, a clearer picture.
Mhm.
Absolutely.
Yeah. Because I think it's important for us to understand too that even in any setting, but sometimes, when, especially in the preschool setting, parents come to us, they're like, oh, they've never done that before. They've never bit before. They've never hit before. And that could be very true that they've never seen that behavior because they've never been in this environment, right? They've never been in preschool. They've never been away from mom and dad or their adult. They've never been around this many children at once, right? So there's a lot of things that could be true that they don't see this behavior. So let's find out more about it. Why is it showing up like this? Asking those clarifying, wondrous questions of what is going on to that, so that then we can better support.
Yeah. Instead of any element of judging, there's a conversation, a curiosity, a conversation. Absolutely. So this one says, you should seek professional help. Now, again, this also goes with like the tone and the facial expression, right? And we'll add ours, and just for the sake of time, feel free to chime in on yours too. Another way you can say this, it sounds like you may need more than I can offer. Have you thought about seeing a professional that can help? And sometimes it's okay to know our limits, right? And then offering, if our families are open to more resources.
Do you know that we offer these services in our office in case somebody needs assistance, we are here to help.
Yes, absolutely. Making available what you have to offer.
I think when you use the term professional, like seeing a professional, that can be scary to parents. So maybe starting with, maybe you should have a conversation with your pediatrician and get some feedback, because then it coming from a doctor, pediatrician, can be a little bit more calming for a parent.
Absolutely. And this phrasing too, it depends on like our spaces, right? Our settings, our organizations. And so you're very much right on that. Like in a preschool setting, I wouldn't use that term professional. I would, have you spoken to your pediatrician? Absolutely.
Yeah.
No, in the preschool setting, or at least with what we're doing, we are asking a lot of questions, and we ask, are you willing? Are you open to speaking with somebody who has more education in this background, or who might be able to support you in some of the serious things that are going on in the home?
Yes, absolutely. I've used that phrase. We are, as preschool teachers, we are just generalists. I learned that from a mentor of mine, but yes, are you open is a great way of inviting. Yes. All right. So this one here, you should stop and think before you act. Sorry. Or you can say, and there's plenty of other ways to say it too. I wonder if stopping here before deciding could be helpful. Sometimes it can be important to take a pause before making a choice.
Give yourself time to understand, and so give yourself time, take your time, be easy on yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. All of those.
Some of the schools I support, they use teaching pyramid, and we have the Tucker turtle. So we talk about taking time to tuck and think.
Yes,
I love it. Yes.
Tucking turtles, very popular.
And it's such an easy thing for them to understand, that it's not threatening. And you're saying the same thing, but in a much more child-friendly way.
Absolutely. And that imagery too is helpful. Yes, absolutely.
I've seen kids go pick up the turtle, because we have a Tucker turtle, and they'll go pick him up. And so,
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing. All right, our last one says, your parenting style isn't working. That's one way. Or you can try, I notice that when you are fully present with your child responds quickly and is focused. So focusing on the encouraging moment, focusing on, what the behavior that we're wanting to see, and noticing that when it is carried out, the response from the child, highlighting those things. That's another way. Yeah. Now I know we're coming right up against our time. So I see that we, as much as we'd love to continue on, we have to pass it on back to Catherine over at First Five. So thank you all so much. Put your last thoughts in the chat if you would like. And thank you for being here.
And for the last one, I would say there are some there are some more ways of dealing with this situation, and it's very effective if you would like to consider.
Yeah, if you'd like to consider, there are other ways. Absolutely. Opening up that conversation. Thank you for chiming in. All right, Catherine, we'll pass it back on to you. Thank you all.
Yeah, well, thank you so much, Tanya and Jessica, for this wonderful presentation, all these tools that you've shared with us, these engaging activities. I just want to mention that you folks will be receiving the materials. On the last couple of slides, there are affirmations of a preschool teacher and resources, so you will definitely be receiving that. Thank you, folks, for joining us today. It's an engaging conversation, and so do keep an eye out for an email with our survey. We'd love to get your feedback on this training. This is one of our training pilots, so we'd really like to get some feedback. We'll also, again, send you the resources and some information as well. So we hope to see you next time. Have a wonderful day.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you for your engagement.